This is the story of Final Fantasy XIV, Heavensward, Part 2 of 2. Now where we left off, Ysayle was discouraged. Her plea for peace with Hraesvelgr has failed, and she's learned that she's not truly Shiva reborn. Let's get started.
But your efforts at parley have come to naught, Lady Ishgard. I would see Ishgard saved, and for that, Nidhogg must die.
Ysayle stays behind while the others head east to Nidhogg's lair. As they approach his lair, known as the Aery, they find it shielded by powerful winds, but Alphino is reminded of how Cid helped them through a similar situation when they fought Garuda not long ago.
Mayhap it is time we called upon Master Garland. 'Twill be just like the good old days, no?
Estinian stays behind while the others head to Ishgard. The hero and Alphino find Cid back in Ishgard and tell him about the wind barrier. Cid says they should check out his latest project, so they head to the ironworks.
We call it a mana cutter.
Suddenly, Tataru barges in.
I've been looking all over for you. There's been word from Ul'dah. It's about Her Grace the Sultana.
The heroes head to the Waking Sands as the engineers resume work on the mana cutter. They arrive at the Waking Sands and find Roban in good spirits. Roban and Pippin say they've learned that the Sultana is being kept in the palace, and Yugadi says they've tracked down her lady-in-waiting.
We sent for you as soon as we learned of her location. All that remains is to apprehend the woman.
Roban mentions there may be a fight coming if the monitorists catch wind of them, but the hero says he has his back.
Then I pity the bastard that stands in our way. Come, my friends, for Nanamo and for Ul'dah!
They make their way to the house where the lady-in-waiting has been hiding.
You are Meriel, the Sultana's former lady-in-waiting?
I know no one of that name. Pray excuse me.
We will have the truth from you, girl.
She hesitates, then Lolorito and Dulala enter the house.
Lolorito, you'd best talk fast.
Lolorito explains that Teleji plotted the assassination, but Lolorito found it would hurt his profits if the Empire were thrown into disorder, so he swapped the poison for a sleeping potion, thus saving the Sultana's life. He also says he's had Ilberd in his pocket from the beginning, just by promising to help fund the effort to liberate Alamigo, but he no longer associates with Ilberd.
This potion will wake the Sultana from her slumber. Consider it a gesture of conciliation.
I like not your motives, Lolorito, but you saved the Sultana's life, and for that, you have my gratitude.
They leave for Ul'dah to revive the Sultana and restore order. Roban gives her the waking potion and she sits up.
I was having the longest dream.
'Tis time to wake up, your grace. Another day begins in Thanalan, and the sun blazes bright upon the sands.
Roban is happy to report to the others that Nanamo is in good health and will resume her seat as Sultana. Lolorito says Ul'dah needs to get back to order soon because the Garlean Empire is working on a new, monstrous ship similar to the Agrius. Later outside, Yugadi approaches and says that back at the Rising Stones, the braves loyal to Alphino remain, but those loyal to Ilberd have left. The hero and Alphino head to the Rising Stones. Alphino is humbled as the remaining braves don't hold anything against him and swear to continue to serve the Scions. He pauses to take care of a few things while the hero returns to Ishgard. The hero finds Estinian in Ishgard and they go to speak with Sir Aymeric. Alphino joins them and says the mana cutter is ready for travel.
Victory will be hard won, even so, and I shall be glad indeed to have the Warrior of Light at my side.
Estinian and the hero take the mana cutters and fly to the Aery. They fight their way through many lesser drakes and confront Nidhogg. Working together and wielding the eye, they defeat him, and Estinian gouges out his remaining eye.
You gifted my people 1,000 years of suffering. Now I gift you an eternity in darkness.
Meanwhile, the hero has a vision of another of his crystals going bright, followed by a vision of Thordan's knights in the past. In this vision, the dragoon Haldrath emerges with 2 red eyes. He laments that, though he was victorious, so many have suffered and died. Haldrath forsakes the throne and says he's doomed to fight until he dies, then he leaves.
Have we seized this desperate victory, only to lose a king?
We few who remain must divide between us the rulership of Ishgard and her people.
Some knights disagree and leave, but 4 remain and agree to rule jointly.
Thordan, Hylanat, Dyrendare, and Ysayle. But 4 houses to rule all of Ishgard. We shall shape our nation anew with a history of our own making, and let the truth of this dark day die here.
The hero returns from his vision and tells Estinian what he saw. He recounts Ishgard's history, then has an interesting question.
If Huldreth took both of Nidhogg's eyes, then how came this eye to be lodged in the worm's skull? Beneath every answer we unearth, another question lies buried.
Estinian says they need to speak with Hraesvelgr to fill these gaps. They return to the summit to find Ysayle still there, and the hero blows the horn to call Hraesvelgr again. Hraesvelgr says he already knows they've defeated Nidhogg.
You mean the moment I prized your eye from his head?
Hraesvelgr confirms he lent his eye to Nidhogg in the past, and the hero returns it to him. Then he and Ysayle are struck with a vision. In this vision of the past, Nidhogg tells Hraesvelgr that his eyes have been taken and asks him for one of his so he may inflict torment on them in return.
You surrendered your eye to Nidhogg, knowing full well the suffering he would inflict!
Hraesvelgr is still angry about treachery of the past, feels no remorse, and he leaves. Just then, Sir Aymeric calls Estinian's link pearl.
Fighting has broken out in the city. Lord Aymeric was sparse with the particulars, but it seems some commoners threw open the gates to a force of heretics.
Ysayle insists on coming to Ishgard to help.
There has been enough violence. I will appeal to my people in the city and make them see reason.
Meanwhile, the Archbishop is scheming with his most trusted knights.
Very good. Grant our guests what time they need to sow a measure of chaos, then order the Temple Knights to crush them.
The knights depart and La Habrea is pleased.
It is time for the Bringer of Light to die.
There!
Comrades! Sheathe your swords! There is no need for further bloodshed!
She tells the heretics there is nothing to fight over because Nidhogg is dead and the hatred dies with him. It's time for peace.
Have we lost?
No, my friend! Far from it! At long last, the peace for which we have so desperately fought is within our grasp, and I, for one, would not forsake it.
The Temple Knights try to arrest Ysayle, but Haurchefant steps in.
If the heretics mean to observe the peace, then it would be folly not to do the same.
The crowd disperses, and calm returns to the streets. Back at Manor Fortant, the hero explains everything to all present, going back to when they first reached out to Lady Iceheart.
The infamous Lady Iceheart? Here in Ishgard? This is most unexpected.
The Count is surprised, but considering how much they've accomplished and the fact that Nidhogg is dead, he accepts it. Aymeric says he will confront the Archbishop about the Church's lies, but everyone warns him against it.
My friends, this war will never truly be at an end until the truth is made known.
He also argues that the truth will come out anyway, then he leaves.
We must not think of ways to hinder his cause, but rather ways to aid it, even should the Holy See cry heresy.
She says she'll fight to rescue him if need be, but then reveals that Sir Aymeric is actually a bastard son of the Archbishop, so she doubts the Archbishop will harm him.
Bastard or trueborn, he is our nation's best hope. If the Holy See dares to threaten him, I shall lead the charge against the Vault myself.
Haurchefant agrees, but his father the Count tells him to be reasonable.
There is no greater calling for a knight than to save the life of his fellow man. I swear to you, on the sigil of our house, that I shall do this and make you proud.
Lucia suggests they enlist the aid of the revolutionaries from the Broom. Just as the hero and Alfino discuss matters in the Broom, Tataru is being threatened by street thugs.
Where do you think you're going, Missy?
The hero and Alfino rush to save her, but then a mysterious raven-haired woman approaches.
Lay a finger on the blue blood's pups, and you're like to lose the hand.
The thugs leave, and the woman introduces herself as Hilda, and she's the one Lucia was referring to. She agrees to talk to the heroes in private back at the Forgotten Knight. At the tavern, Alfino explains their purpose.
So, While you're on your way to kill Nidhogg, you stumbled on some dirty secrets that the Holy See has been hiding for centuries.
She also realizes that there's no difference between highborn and lowborn, it was all a lie, and Sir Aymeric wants to help. Alphino asks for her help, but a knight crashes the scene.
Ah, the unmistakable scent of heresy.
A fight breaks out and they take it outside. Lucia arrives to help, but he flees. Lucia says Sir Aymeric is being held captive in the vault, and that half the Temple Knights have joined the Heavensward, while the others remain loyal to him. Hilda decides she's ready to help.
Your passion moved me. A bit. That, and the fact that we're sick of living off the leavings of our betters.
She agrees to cause a distraction while the heroes infiltrate the vault. The heroes fight their way through the vault and confront Sir Hraesvelgr. Defeated, the knights flee on an airship.
Fall back!
We were not too late, my friends!
Nidhogg is fallen. There is no need for further deception. Now is the time to renounce the lies which led us down this path. To start anew!
And tear down the very pillars of our society?
Look out! Oh, do not look at me so. A smile better suits a hero.
The hero returns to Manor Fortant with the news.
A knight lives to serve, to protect, to sacrifice. There is no greater calling. My son.
Alphino recounts when Haurchefant provided sanctuary in their time of need. Meeting with Sir Aymeric, the hero is struck with a vision of the past.
The founding. The scriptures, 1,000 years of lies, all to deceive the common man.
The Archbishop confirms he knew all along, then tries to justify his actions.
Dragons are not like us, my son. To they who live forever, the wrongs of antiquity are as those of yesterday. No reparations shall ever suffice.
You have given us a lost cause, a death sentence. With your compelling narrative, you but doom our countrymen to give their lives for a lie.
They continue to argue until Aymeric is arrested, then the vision ends. Aymeric and Alphino recall that the Archbishop alluded to a coming change, and it even appears as though his knights are tempered by him.
If Lady Iceheart can use her own body as a vessel for summoning, I see no reason why others could not.
Aymeric says the Archbishop is headed for Azys, and that whatever he's doing, he needs to be stopped. Intent on finding Azys, the heroes meet with Cid and fly to the Sea of Clouds, which is believed to be near Azys. Exploring the area, they run into some Imperials threatening the Vanu Beast tribe, and a fight breaks out. After defeating the Imperials, the heroes are invited to the local Vanu village. They find them hospitable and not tempered by the Sky Whale. Speaking of which, the Sky Whale Bismarck flies overhead and eats an island. The chief of the Beast Tribe says he knows of Azys, and the key to getting there lies on the island the whale just ate. Cid proposes luring the whale out by towing an island behind the airship. The heroes go with this plan and tow an island through the Limitless Blue, and Bismarck takes the bait. They attack and slay him, and an Allegan key falls to the ground. The hero gets a brief vision of a fourth crystal lighting up and hears hints of Hydaelyn's voice, then wakes up. As he takes the key, he's approached by the Archbishop and the Ascian named Igorim.
He has what we seek?
She confirms and then takes it from him, but noting that the Blessing of Light is returning to him. The Archbishop thanks the hero for slaying Bismarck and activates the key. They return to the Vanu village, only to find them captured by Emperor Varys himself.
The Warrior of Light is wont to appear at the most inopportune times.
Varys says they're both here for the power to dominate icons, aka primals, which is the secret held at Azys. The Imperials prepare to execute the Vanu, but a shot from out of nowhere stops them.
Where did that come from?
Lucia arrives, riding a Magitech armor, and they escape on Cid's airship.
My full name is Lucia Go Junius, and I was born a citizen of Garlemald.
Aboard the airship bound for Azys, Lucia explains that she is Livia's sister and a former Garlean spy once assigned to Ishgard.
Livia Sus Junius? The tribunus who served under Gaius van Baelsar?
In time, I came to realize that I had found a man worth following, and a new home besides. And when I subsequently confessed all to Sir Aymeric, he was good enough to accept me into his service.
Look! I think that's it!
They approach Azys, but find it protected by a magical barrier and are forced to leave.
God damn it all! Why do the Allagans always have to make everything so bloody complicated?
Back in Ishgard, Cid says he can pierce the barrier with a ram of condensed ether, but would need help from an expert on ether. Tataru says Pippin has news about a missing Archon, so they head to Ul'dah to get more info. In Ul'dah, Pippin says they've searched the rubble in the waterway the Scions used to escape, and found Yshtola's wand. Urianger analyzes the wand and says her last spell was an ancient teleportation spell that reduces the caster to ether and puts them in the lifestream. He says this spell is forbidden and dangerous, but they may be able to recover her. Outside, Urianger equips his fancy goggles and Yshtola's wand and studies etheric disturbances. He determines that she lingers in the Twelveswood near Gridania, so they leave immediately. In Gridania, Khan Ysena is happy to help, but says they need a family member present. Thankfully, Tataru knows of someone.
Y'shtola has a sister who came to live in Gridania. She told me about her once.
Oh, that is most fortunate indeed. Pray, seek this sister out then, and bring her to Evershade.
Yshtola's sister is easily found and they head straight to the Twelveswood.
A room has been readied at the Roost. Pray, bear her thither at once.
Sometime later,
Y'shtola! I'm so glad you're back!
everyone is glad to see her. Then she explains what happened.
I brought the tunnel down that you and Minfidia might escape. At the last moment, I invoked a teleportation magic, in hopes of spiriting Thancred away at least. Needless to say, it did not go quite as planned, and I found myself adrift in the lifestream.
Tataru gives her an outfit she made for her and tells her everything that has happened in the meantime. Asked about the etheric ram, she says she knows someone who can help.
A leading figure in the field of etheric research, and one of the finest scholars ever to grace Sharlayan. Matoya, my former master.
She explains that Matoya is a hermit living in an abandoned Sharlayan settlement in the Dravanian hinterlands, so they set out. They enter the Dravanian hinterlands and make their way to the abandoned Sharlayan settlement. They find it populated by friendly goblins and treasure hunters who call the place Idyllshire. Alphino says they need to cross a nearby river, but the bridge is obstructed. The goblin Slowfix says he can help if they do him some favors first. While helping around the area, the heroes run into Brayflox and defend him from the Illuminati, a gang of bad goblins. Returning to Idyllshire, Slowfix is happy to hear that Brayflox is a friend of the heroes and says the bridge will be cleared for them. Y'shtola guides the heroes to Matoya's cave.
Don't you know it's rude to enter without knocking? The youth of today. No manners at all.
Y'shtola and Matoya greet each other playfully, and then Matoya turns to Alphino.
The one there in the fancy duds. That's Louis Soir's granddaughter, I take it?
Grandson, begging your pardons. You knew my grandfather, my lady.
Matoya knew his grandfather well and knew Alphino since he was a baby.
Now out with it. What is it you need of me?
They explain their mission, and she says Azys is a research facility where they once mastered primals and dragons. She says about 50 years ago, Sharlayan was threatened by the Garleans, and at the time, she built a weapon called an etheric converger. It suits the Scions' purposes, so she agrees to share the tech with them.
All the information you need is contained in a tome I wrote on the subject.
The hero heads to the library while the others stay to help Matoya. The hero fights his way through the great Gubal library and faces off with strange possessed books and other guardians. At the end, he defeats the ever-living Bibliotaph. He has a brief vision of his 5th crystal lighting up, then he takes the book he came for. Back in Matoya's cave, she is pleased at the hero's success.
I had not thought to behold this tome again.
Next, they ponder how they can possibly source enough ether to run this thing until it hits Alphino.
We already have what we need! The eye!
They say their goodbyes and dash off to Ishgard, but Matoya pulls Ysayle aside for a second. She asks why her eyes have changed, and she mentions the teleportation spell she used.
They are called forbidden spells for a reason. What were you thinking, girl?
Ysayle defends her decision, and Matoya tells her to be careful, then she joins the others. Back in Ishgard, Cid is happy to see Ysayle alive and well, and she gives him the book. Estinian pulls out the eye and says he can harness its power. The engineers get to work. While waiting, the hero pays a visit to Manor Forton, and the Count gives him Horshafont's broken shield as a memento. He returns to the Enterprise, and Ysayle warns Estinian of the eye's corrupting power.
Save your concern. I will consume the eye ere I let it consume me.
Suddenly, Urianger approaches with a white orsite crystal.
To mine amazement, it lay hid amongst Moonbreeder's last effects.
He gives it to them, and they board the airship, which Cid renames the Excelsior. They approach the barrier to Azys.
Eye of mine enemy, render unto me thy power!
We're through! Chief, we've got an Imperial battleship on our tail, and it's bleeding massive.
They attempt to outrun the battleship. Meanwhile, Ysayle approaches on the back of Hraesvelgr.
Is that Ysayle? What does she mean to do?
Farewell, warrior of light, and thank you for showing me the way.
Ysayle recognizes her ether as she dissipates.
She, too, was one of Hydaelyn's chosen.
Fare you well, my lady.
Landed on Azys, they pause to reflect on her sacrifice and remember her good deeds. Exploring the island, they find a mechanical sphere that calls itself a guidance node, and it assists them with their questions and access to terminals. After recent activity is detected at the Aetherochemical research facility, the heroes decide to make that their destination. As they make their way through Azys, they approach the facility but find Imperial soldiers in their path.
Let no man doubt the import of our mission. The Allagans found a means to capture icons alive, and their knowledge lies hid upon this isle.
To think that the knowledge used to bind no less a being than Bahamut sleeps here.
Whatever folly the Garleans mean to commit, they can wait. We must remain focused on our task.
Yes, of course. It would not be polite to keep the Archbishop waiting.
Regula Van Hydrus discovers the heroes.
We meet again. And this time, we will not be interrupted.
You must continue on. We will hold them here.
Take the eye. It should still hold enough energy to be of use to you.
The hero teleports to another quadrant where the guide tells him there are live dragons. Mini Midgard Sormir appears and says he wants the hero to understand the pain felt by his daughter that is trapped here and realize the cruelty these ancient people inflicted upon the dragons. The hero encounters Tiamat, the consort of Bahamut, and Mini Midgard Sormir appears for her. She explains that 5,000 years ago, the Allagans slaughtered Bahamut and their children, but the Ascians approached her and offered to resurrect him. She took the offer, and she has spent millennia regretting it, as he was not the same, and soon after, they helped the Allagans trap him. The hero has a brief vision of his final crystal being lit.
The light abideth within thy heart again. Receive of me my blessing once more.
Midgard Sormir is impressed that the hero regained the Blessing of Light and changes his size to accommodate the hero for flight. The hero flies to the central island which houses the facility. He enters and fights his way through strange creatures in the Aetherochemical research facility, fighting two Ascians, Laha Brea and Igorum, in the final room. After a good fight, he emerges victorious. As the hero faces a weakened La Habrea, the Archbishop approaches bearing a white coffin. The Archbishop uncovers a long-standing mystery, the location of Nidhogg's other eye.
It has lain here, joined to the person of Haldreth, the first Azure Dragoon.
Speaking to La Habrea, he says their kind has sown much chaos by spreading the art of summoning, then turns against him.
By taking unto my flesh the soul of the legendary King Thordan, I can become a god!
For my first act as God King, I do hereby sentence you to die!
After killing La Habrea, Thordan says he will end all conflict with his might, then challenges the hero. The Warrior of Light faces off with the primal King Thordan at the Singularity Reactor. The fight is flashy and spectacular, and yet the hero endures.
Who? What are you?
Estinian arrives, and the hero returns the eye.
'Twould seem the eye has served you well.
Holding both eyes, Estinian is overwhelmed by Nidhogg's power. Nidhogg possesses Estinian, restores all his might with both eyes, and flies off in a rage. Midgard Sormir laments at what his son has become. The hero flies back to the ship.
Let us return to Ishgard.
I dare say you are the first soul in Ishgardian history to arrive in our city upon Dragonback.
Aymeric speaks of a new day of peace between man and dragon, but Midgard Sormir warns that Nidhogg is back and will strike before long. Nevertheless, he also believes peace is possible and says this must be taught to their children.
Entrust unto them thy hopes and dreams, that peace may reign again.
He flies off. A new day begins as Ishgard finally joins the Eorzean alliance.
For the future of Eorzea! From here, Lord Orzhofon can watch over all of Ishgard.
Meanwhile, far away,
Hydaelyn's champion has grown too strong. The time has come for you and yours to join the fray, Warrior of Darkness.
Of all the things they could have picked to play with, that's not a toy, you bloody fools, it's a primal!
in Dravania, an ancient mechanical monstrosity is unearthed. And that concludes the story of patch 3.0 Heavensward. If you want to see what happens next, check out the video on the story of patch 3.1. See you next time.